This bag, we are going to be using this beautiful Ankara print. I've already cut out the Ankara fabric we are going to be using. I'm going to be using 2 of them, and we are going to be using suede for lining, black suede. I'm going to be using wording. 2 of them have been cut out. And now let's talk about the measurement for this print. Each of the main panel is going to measure 12 inches by 8 inches. So 2 of them have been cut out. Also, the suede is going to measure the same thing, 12 by 8 inches. The length is going to be 12, while the width is going to be 8 inches. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to base the Ankara print to the wording and actually cut the Ankara print a bit bigger than the wording. When we finish, we are going to trim off the Ankara print. The reason I did this was for the Ankara print not to get shrink by the time we are sewing. So the Ankara print is like half an inch bigger than the main measurement. We are going to need zipper. The zipper head has been fixed. Guys, remember the width of the main panel is 12 inches. So the zipper is going to measure 13 inches. I actually include 1 inch. I wanted it to be excess. By the time we finish sewing, we are going to trim off the excess zipper. Okay. We are also going to need 2 D-rings for this part of it. Also, we are going to need this holder here. I used Ankara fabric for it, and this measures 4 inches by 4 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to fold into 4 because the D-ring we are using is 1 inch in width. Okay, so I'm going to fold into 4. So I'm going to put it like this into the D-ring, or we sight it like this. Okay, so that's how you're going to get this part of it. And finally, you are going to need this tape for taping the inside of the bag to make it neat. So these are basically what we are going to need to make this beautiful makeup bag. We are going to go to the machine and start sewing the Ankara fabric to the wording. So let's pin now before we sew. So I'm just going to pin them in place, and we're going to be sewing just to base it in place. No need to back stitch. I'm just basing in place. Cut off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this off, the excess Ankara print. I'm just trimming close to the wording or the interfacing. So 2 of them. You can iron if you want. I'm going to fold this into 4. Remember the measurement is 4 inches by 4 inches for this part of the bag. I will fold the edge, this edge towards the middle of this. Then fold this other edge towards the middle like this. Then I'll fold this one to the edge like this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to sew on top of this place. I'm going to top stitch. It's about to rain in this area, and so the weather is getting dark, getting very dark. So I'm just top stitching. So it's going to go like this into the D-ring. I'm going to be sewing the zipper to the external of the main panel, so I'm just going to pin them in place. So what I did, I'm extending the zipper towards this edge. When we finish, we are going to trim off. I'm going to pin from this place to this place. So guys, I've pinned them, so I'm going to sew on it. The next thing is to sew your lining to the external. I'm going to lay the right side of the lining to the right side of the external like this. Then you can pin in place, or you can just clip them in place. So I'm going to turn it and I'm going to sew on this first stitch, back stitch, and basically sewing on the stitch, the previous stitch. That's what I'm sewing on. Just make sure you follow it. Get to the end, I'll back stitch. So next I'm just going to trim this off, the excess. So I'll take my zipper edge, take it inside. I will trim this excess off. Okay, I'm going to turn it like this. Just move the lining this way. I'll just use my hand to just press it. It's advisable for you to iron in place if you want it to lay flat. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my hand to press it, and I'm going to pin it here. I'll take my lining and pin it. Ensure your lining gets to the edge of it. So you pin. Take this other side of it. I'll pin. Okay. Take another clip. I'm going to pin. I'm going to top stitch on this. After that, I'm going to sew all around it to hold it in place. So let's top stitch here. This foot edge is on the edge of this folded part of the external. So I'm basically going to follow it this way. Just careful so I come out with a neat top stitch. You want to make any adjustment, you put your needle down, then continue. When I get to the edge, I'll back stitch. Cut this off. So next, I'm just going to sew all around it, base it in place. What I'm doing, I'm sewing on that stitch I use in sewing the Ankara to the wording. Just sew on it to get a neat work. Check all the time to ensure you are sewing on the lining. That's why most time I just cut my lining to the excess. So once I finish sewing, I will trim off. I've finished basing it in place. I'm going to take this other one. I'm going to sew it to this. I'll take the right side of this external, take the right side of the zipper. I'm going to lay them with the right side facing each other like this. Can clip or just pin in place. So I'm now trying to arrange this one in place to ensure that it fits. So I'm going to sew from here to here. Back stitch. Ensure you are sewing close to the teeth. If you don't want your zipper to be wobbling, just ensure you sew close to the teeth. By the time you get to where this zipper head is, you put your needle down, you raise this part of the machine up, then you can now move your zipper head down away from where you want to sew. Then put this down, continue the sewing. When you get to the end, you back stitch. So I finished sewing the zipper to it. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sew the lining to it. The right side of the line is going to lay on the right side of this other panel here, this external panel. So I'm just going to pin them in place, just like I did before when we were sewing the first one, the first external panel. So you're going to do the same. So I ensure that the right side of this lays on the right side of this one, this external panel here. I'll back stitch. So I'm sewing close, a bit close to the zipper tips. I'm going to take it like this. Before we top stitch, we clip it in place. So I'm going to top stitch on it. I'm just going to top stitch. I'm going to be sewing all around this. I'm going to turn it like this. This part that is 12 inches, I'm going to be sewing on it at ½ inch seam allowance. I'm just going to clip it in place. So I've clipped in place, so I'm just going to sew at ½ inch seam allowance. So guys, what I did, I've marked out ½ inch because my machine foot does not have that ½ inch mark. So I'm just going to be sewing on that ½ inch. I'll follow that line. So following the line I marked out, if your machine foot does not have the ½ inch mark, you can always mark out and sew on the line. I'll back stitch. I'm going to trim off this one. Please don't trim on the stitch. Just carefully trim it off so I can lay flat. I'm going to be using this belt to tape these edges to make it look neat. So I'm basically going to tape with it. So I'll take it like this, just put it. So I'll advise you to burn the edges off first. I'm going to back stitch first. Back stitch. If there's any part that did not sew, like this part, you can re-sew it again just to hold it in place. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it like this. You see these two sides that we've not sewn, ensuring that this place that the zipper is on the middle of this. So we are going to be sewing and cross it from here to here. Before we sew, our D-ring holder is here. You're going to put it like this on the middle of this. Align this on this. Make sure that everything is at the middle or center. So I'm just going to clip. So I'm going to sew from this point to this point to get hard because of the material we've used. Remember, we used this, and remember we are going to be sewing this as well as this. We are sewing a lot of fabric at this point. So I'm going to be sewing at ½ inch seam allowance. So if your machine is not the strong tap, you're allowed to use your hand. So at this point, I'm going to use my hand. Then I'll back stitch. So guys, I actually went ahead to mark out ½ inch. So I'm going to press this one down again. Take my second D-ring holder. I'm going to put it inside like this on the middle of this point here. Then take this one and place at the middle as well. Then I'm going to clip in place. Then I'm going to mark out ½ inch where we are going to sew on. So guys, I'm going to be sewing on this line here. So you take know it's going to be hard here. So just use your finger to press down the zipper. You have to be careful, extremely careful. So at this point, I'll advise you to back stitch. So I'll back stitch. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to trim this one off and trim this off. So I'll take it, bond this first, then put it like this. The next thing, which is the last thing, I'll just open this from the zipper side. So I'll fold it like this. I'm going to shape it like this, okay? For it to have this boss corner shape, this shape here, can you see the way this one is looking? This shape, and to have this, I'm going to just take it from this. I will make it like this. Then I'll now measure like 2 inches from the edge here to this place. I'm going to do this, and this. 2 inches from the edge. My 2 inches is at the edge, right? I'm going to measure out. So I'm going to sew on it here to here. Back stitch. It's actually hard at this point. Remember, we have this thing here, this belt. We taped it with this belt, so it's going to be hard at that point where the belt is. Back stitch. Sewing, back stitch. Now I'll put my needle there. If I want to make any adjustments, then you raise that part up. So try to, if it's too hard at this point where this tape is, you try to use your hand to push it to assist the machine. Don't allow the machine to do all the work alone. So I'm going to back stitch at that point again, basically using my hand. I've sewn the 4 of them. So if you want, you can just cut this off and tape. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn it out. Poke your finger into it. So I've turned it. Beautiful, beautiful. It's so pretty. I love the fact that it's puffing. Okay, so guys, this is the inside of the bag. This is how to sew a makeup bag. If you don't want to use it as a makeup bag, you can hold it like this. It's so fine. I love the fabric. Okay, this is a big size. So I use the same wording to make these 2 bags, but this one is looking thicker and harder than this. I think the reason is because I did not trim off this part of it before. I didn't trim it, so it actually makes it kind of hard and solid, while on this side I trimmed them off. So you are allowed to do whatever suits you. Okay, it's also fine. This one is lined with blue suede. I want you to make an attempt to make something like this and send the pictures to my WhatsApp page. And give this video a like or a thumbs up if you like it, or any of my other videos. Thank you. Love you guys. Have a nice time.